Hey everyone! So this week we are focusing on chapter 7 and 8. And the first quote from chapter 7 that I chose was, "It's important to spend time in the preparation stage of the interview process, identifying the appropriate person for the interview. A person who will allow you to reach your interview goal." So I think that the author is basically saying here, you want to make sure you're choosing the right person to interview. A lot of time can be wasted if you interview the wrong person. A lot of companies spend a lot of time and money interviewing people, and they waste a lot of that time by choosing the wrong candidates. So it's important to choose the person who can help you to achieve your interview goals, whether it's finding the right person for a job or finding the right person who can give you information about a story. Journalists need to find people who can provide them information and details about certain events that have happened, and need to find someone who can provide them with credible facts. The second quote that I chose was, actually it should have come first, but it's, "Your job as an interviewer is to ask questions that will allow people to tell their stories." I think that this is an important point because people do have a story. Some people have a hard time sharing, and other people are able to talk freely. It's important as an interviewer to be able to get to the bottom of the person's story, whether they want to talk about it or not. I think as an interviewer, it's an important skill to have to be able to make people comfortable and to be able to get them to tell their story. In a job interview, you need people to tell you their story in order to select them for employment. You want them to tell you their work story. And in an information interview, you might want people to tell you information about a hurricane or a crime that happened. So it's important either way to be able to get people to tell you their story. And a story includes details and gives you the full picture rather than just asking questions for specific details. From chapter 8, the first quote that I chose is, "To prepare for a job interview, you need to identify your interview goal, develop your resume, identify and research the appropriate organization, position, and contact person, write a cover letter, and arrange the interviewer." I think chapter 7 focused a lot on what the responsibility of an interviewer is in preparing for an interview. And chapter 8 focuses more on what your role is as the interviewee. I think it's important to identify your goal as an interviewee because you want to make sure that the position you're interviewing for fits with your career goals or your strengths and desires. You also want to develop a resume that can secure you the right position, or secure you an interview, actually. If you don't have a strong resume, you're not even going to be able to get an interview for the position that you want. So developing a resume is part of getting your interview goals. It's also important to do your homework, research the company, find out if it's a company that you actually want to work for, and find out what you can about them so that you can answer the interview questions well. You also should write a cover letter, which basically tells the company why you're a good candidate and why they should choose you for an interview. And finally, you need to set up the interview. It's important when you're looking for a job interview to make yourself available and to set up a time that works for both the interviewer and the interviewee. And the final quote that I chose from chapter 8 it's more of a section, but it's the quote about the 3 worst ways to look for a job, according to Bowles, which also happen to be the most used by college students, are using the internet, mailing out resumes to employers at random, answering advertisements in professional or trade journals. And then the 3 best ways are asking for job leads from family members or friends, knocking on the doors of any employer or factory office that interests you, or using the Yellow Pages. I think this is important because a lot of people think that the internet is now becoming the best way to find a job. But according to the authors, most job positions are already filled by the time they're advertised. So looking on the internet is likely to lead you to a position that's already been filled. At one of the offices I worked at, they were looking for a position for an admin, and they already had someone in mind from the office. They only posted the position online to see if they got any better candidates, and they didn't. They ended up filling the position from within. So the position was already filled before it was even advertised. And personally, all the jobs that I've gotten have been through personal connections from family members and friends, and people that I already knew recommended a job to me. I think that any of these, asking for job leads, knocking on the doors of an employer, or using the Yellow Pages, allows you to make a connection with a potential employer before the fact, before there's a job open and before the job is advertised, which allows you to discover the job before it's already been filled. I think that's really important to realize, and I think it's tempting to use the internet as an avenue for looking for jobs, but I think it's important to be aware that personal connections are the best way to actually secure a job. Thanks, everyone.